Hello everyone, welcome back to JP's Budget Collecting and our weekly look back at the CBSI Hot Top 10 from 6 months ago. This week we're looking back at the Hot Top 10 from December 14th, 2018, and I'm recording this on May, what is today? 13th, 2019. So this week's list, not very different from last week's list, where I said there was lots of real value kind of in that list. This is a little more typical of when we've looked back at the Hot Top 10. There's several hot covers. There's a couple of small keys. There's one probably real key. And then some indie books of the moment, that kind of thing. Needless to say, this list didn't hold up as well as last week's did in terms of value. But without further ado, let's get into the list and see what the books are that we're talking about. First up, at number 10 is Amazing Spider-Man number 365. And this was a direct result of the Spider-Verse movie and the cameo of Spider-Man 2099 right at the end, kind of in the after-credit scene. That caused this book to spike. And as a result, back then, 9.8 jumped up from about $100 to about $200 and more as a result of this cameo and the thought that they would be in the next Spider-Verse movie. Since then, this book has cooled considerably. Raws of this book are back down to like $5 to $15. They'd actually got up to $20 to $30 back then and back in December. And 9.8s are back down to $100 to $120 for this book. Kind of a minor key. Spider-Man 2099 was part of that whole, it was kind of a cool concept. My guess is we might see him at some point in one of these Spider-Verse movies, but I don't know that this is a Spider character that's ever going to hold a ton of value, but maybe a little more than it does right now. At number 9 on the list, we have Punchline number 2, and this book spiked because Punchline number 1 spiked. There really wasn't any real rhyme or reason other than when it first came out, Punchline was kind of a hot indie. Punchline number 1 was going for good value. As a result, right out of the gate, number 2 jumped to $15 to $20 on the secondary market almost immediately. This book has not sustained that. I don't know. I never read Punchline, so I don't know all the details, but I don't think it's... I think it was just a short miniseries. I don't know if it's an ongoing or not. I could be wrong about that, but didn't really carry the momentum. Actually, Punchline number 1, I think, made the list a few weeks ago, and I showed then that it had dropped back considerably. This book now is basically a $5 to $10 book. So it's still going for more than cover, but it's not in that $15, $20, $25 range that it was when it first came out. There have been no slab sales for this book, so there's nothing really to report there. So that was number 9 on the list, Punchline number 2. Another kind of indie of the moment was at number 8 with Mega Ghost number 1, and this was the Eric Powell variant. This was, Powell had been attached. It was supposedly kind of in the Goon universe, maybe. So it had a little bit of heat. People were like excited by it. It was fairly low print on this particular variant. Again, another one that jumped right out of the gate, $15 plus, $20. That $15 to $20 range immediately for this particular variant. And now it's a $5 to $10 book again. Another one, there's lots of these listed, but very few sales. I say it's a $5 to $10 book. There's 3 sales of it, but there's a whole bunch of these listed, and they're all listed like $10, $15, and they're just not selling. There doesn't appear to be a real market for this book. This is another series that didn't seem to have any legs. And again, no slab sales on this one either. So those are 2 kind of indies back-to-back that really didn't have staying power. It does not appear. Next up at number 7 is our first kind of cover buy of the week. This was Silver Surfer, The Best Defense, number 1, the Scan 1 in 25 variant. And this was just kind of a hot incentive right out of the gate. People really liked this cover. I really liked this cover. I thought it was really cool. I did not buy Silver Surfer, The Best Defense. I debated on it mainly. If I could have got this cover, I might have. Then right out of the gate, it's, Oh, looking at the wrong one. Right out of the gate, it was a $40+ book for 1 in 25, and consistently going for almost 50, which double in the ratio is pretty dang good for a incentive cover. But now it's basically a $15 to $30 book. Although lots of the raw copies are listed for 50 plus, they're listed for that, but they're not moving. 9.8s are consistently going in that $90 to $110 range for 9.8 of this cover. There are only currently there are three 9.8s listed. There's one listed for 135, one listed for 200, and one that's an auction that I think was around 35 when I recorded this. But so doesn't appear to be a lot of value maintaining with this one. It was a one-shot, Silver Surfer one-shot. I don't know if Silver Surfer Black, depending on if it ties back to this story, might give this book a little boost again. But probably this is just going to be a cover that people like, that's going to maintain a little bit, but not a lot of value. At number 6 on the list, we have Grumble number 1. The 2 word bubble variations. 2 word bubble variants. These were secret variants for Grumble number 1. They're kind of like those die that had different ones. Well, there was the regular cover that didn't have any word bubbles. There was a variant that was a limited to a print run of 1,000 of the girl speaking and having word bubble. And then there's a variant limited to 300 with the dog speaking and having a word bubble. Right out of the gate, the girl's word bubbles were going for 20 to 25. The dog was going for 40 to 50. The girl version, where she's talking, is back to like a $5 to $10 book. Doesn't appear to be a continued market for it. Again, no slab sales on this one. Another one of those kind of, indies of the moment a little bit. And really, I think this was stirred as much by the secret variant as it was that the indie itself was the story in it anyway. The dog variant has done better with only 300 of them printed. It's still going for $30 to $40 raw, although most people are asking $70. So again, one of those, you can ask what you want to ask, but people aren't really paying more than the $30 to $40. Occasionally somebody does pay the $60, $70 range, but really no reason to. I think if you hold out, if you really wanted this book, if you held out, you could find it for $30 to $40 easy. So that takes us out of the first 5 and into the top 5. Top 5, starts at number 5 with, wow, that is really poor wording, but I'm going to leave it in there because we're doing this in one take. Number 5 is Red Sonja, number 21, the 2 New York Comic-Con variants. These were basically, and really the Virgin, I think, was the one that really was taken off that they were talking about here. It was a set. You could get the Virgin and the trade dress as a set for $75 at New York Comic Con last fall. These were limited to 500 sets, or at least the Virgin was limited to 500. There might have been more of the trade. I wasn't clear when I looked this up exactly how that worked out, but I know the Virgin was limited to 500. Back then, the Virgin Raw was going for $175. Now, basically, there were 2 9.8 slab sales recently. One of the Virgin cover, which went for $300, and one of the trade, which went for $180. Those are the only 2 recent sales I could find. Listings, there was only 3 listings that I found. There was a Raw with the trade dress for $90, a Raw of the Virgin for $180, and a 9.8 of the Virgin for $400. Again, this is a fairly rare book. It's a gorgeous Red Sonja cover. There's no real shortage of gorgeous Red Sonja covers, but this is one people really liked. It was kind of hard to get. Seems to continue to maintain some value now, even though not a lot of sales, but there's also not a lot of out there. So when they do come up, they are selling for pretty good value. Next up at number 4 on the list is Firestorm number 24. And this is the first appearance of the Blue Devil. And this basically spiked because there was casting news for the Swamp Thing show, which is currently coming out on the DC Universe app. And we all know the controversy about the fact of why it's not getting a second season. I won't go into that. But basically the casting news that he was going to be in the series and it was being cast caused this book to spike. 9.8 jumped from basically a $50 book to a $150 book. And it actually continued to climb. Later, it got as much as $200 to $300 for this book in a 9.8. But it has steadily dropped. It's back under $200. The last three sales went for $175, $113, and $128. So it is coming back, despite the fact that the show is ongoing right now. So yeah, this book hit the list before it had actually peaked, one of the rare times. Peaked later at around $300, and it's coming back down to where it was when it first hit the list. Raw copies of this can be found from $5 to $20. Kind of depends on condition, but pretty easy to find, fairly cheap for a raw copy of this book. At number 3 on the list is another kind of small-time key, and that is Marvel Superheroes Secret Wars number 7. And this is the first appearance of the second Spider-Woman, I think, Julia Carpenter. And this is a book that spiked kind of because of the Spider-Verse movie of, hey, there's going to be more Spider-Verse movies, there's going to be more Spider characters. People started jumping on this one because it was a cheap key for a Spider character. Back then, they jumped basically this was like $1, $2 book to a $15 to $20 book for raw copies. Still going 5 to 15, so it hasn't, completely collapsed. Now it's just kind of being recognized as a small key. 9.8s, though, are consistently going in that 180 range. And this is very consistently, like 170 to 190, like almost, and there's been several of them recently, and they're all kind of in that range. So that was number 3 on the list. Number 2 on the list is our one true kind of key, in my opinion, on this list, and that is Teen Titans number 12, the first appearance of the Batman Who Laughs. DC has continued to use this character. He's got his own. This was basically spiking with the release of Batman Who Laughs number 1, the miniseries, is what kind of caused this book to spike then. Raw copies jumped up, had been going 50 to 70 kind of range, and they jumped to the $75 to $100 plus range. During December, 9.8 went over 300 for the first time, and this book has, I don't know if it's continued, well, it's sort of continued to just keep on keeping on. It's not really climbing rapidly, but it's still climbing, kind of. Now 9.8s have actually sold for 400 a couple of times, but are consistently going for 350 to 400 in that range. Raw copies haven't really continued to grow. Occasionally you'll get one for over 100, but you also occasionally get them for 60. And really that $60 to $100 range is kind of pretty typical. So maybe a slight step back from where it was in December, or basically where it was at in December. This is a character that people really like. I haven't read number 6, but that miniseries is wrapping up, and I know there's talk that they're going to have a Batman Who Laughs series after this as well. So that he isn't going anywhere anytime soon. So I have a feeling this book is going to continue to just kind of slowly climb the ladder. Boy, I'm not talking so well tonight, but hopefully you guys are sticking with me. And then last on the list at number 1 is a book that makes me a little disappointed because I tried to pre-order it prior to the FOC, but it was right before the FOC, and my comic shop tried to get it for me, but they were unable to. Diamond basically said they were sold out, so my comic shop didn't get any. And with them, I believe them and know that's the fact, because they don't. Yeah, if I would have got it, if they'd have got it, I'd have got it. And this is the X-23 number 7, the Deodato variant. And this was the first appearance of the X-Assassin, plus it was a cool cover that kind of caused this to jump up a little bit. Then right out of the gate, it was a $25 to $40 book raw. It is a cool cover. That was why I wanted it, not necessarily the first appearance of the X-Assassin. The character married to a little bit in the story, but I don't know if it's going to have any kind of long-term future. I think really at this point it's just a cover. The cover is just pushing the value here. So it was 25 to 40, and it stayed there for quite a long time. Although here in the last couple of months, it's finally started to come back a little bit. There's been lots of sales in that $10 to $25 range. Although there's also still been lots of sales for 30 plus. So most of what I'm getting at there is most of the buy it nows are listed at like 29 to 35 kind of range. There occasionally will be one listed lower. It'll obviously sell. Most of those others are sitting there, but occasionally people do pay the $30. Any kind of auction is not getting to $30. So on this one, I think I would continue to be patient. I may eventually pick one of these up if I can snag one for that $10 to $15 range, which occasionally does happen. 9.8 of this are going for $80 to $100. So 80 to 100 for a 9.8 doesn't really support 30 plus for a raw copy in my mind. And I think that, people are asking that, but but they're not really getting it. So, so that is the list for this week. Like I said, we had X23 was kind of a cover. Red Sonja was a cover. Silver Surfer was a cover. So we had 3 kind of cover buy kind of deals. Had 3 kind of indies that just didn't keep any kind of momentum. They were hot out of the gate. Punchline, Mega Ghost, and Grumble. But there was no legs to those. We had a couple of what I would call small keys, like Spider-Man 2099, the first Blue Devil, Firestorm 24, the first Julia Carpenter. Those books spiked a little bit, but have all come back. So really the only book that's really kind of maintained momentum this week is that Teen Titans 12, the first Batman Who Laughs. And I guess the Red Sonja Virgin cover from NYCC, that Chew Virgin cover, because it is gorgeous. So that's this week's list. I want to thank you guys for joining me, and we will catch you next time.